Taala yang mengizinkan untuk kita bersama dalam satu lagi siri webinar pada pagi ini. Okay, Alhamdulillah. So kita masih menunggu beberapa lagi partisipan yang akan turut sama dalam siri pagi ini. So saya nampak beberapa nama di situ. Assalamualaikum, selamat pagi. Ada Prof Hadi. Prof Hadi ada. Alhamdulillah Prof ada bersama pagi ni. Puan Aisyah ada, Puan Farhan. Ini beberapa nama lah yang boleh saya sebut. Dan terima kasih kepada Prof K lah dan Prof Khairuddin dan dan kita punya beberapa komiti yang bersama pagi ini. So untuk lebih memberkati majlis pada pagi ini, saya minta semua untuk sama-sama membacakan Al-Fatihah. Okay, Al-Fatihah. Amin, amin, amin ya Rabbal Alamin. Okey, beberapa lagi peserta masuk. Okey, untuk memulakan majlis saya harap ada beberapa peraturan lah yang perlu kita patuhi. Pertama, pastikanlah kita punya mikrofon sentiasa dalam mod senyap untuk tidak mengganggu majlis. Dan untuk sesi soal jawab, okey, kita akan buka satu sesi nanti di akhir perkongsian nanti untuk sesi soal jawab, dan boleh tulis di ruangan chat box atau jika peserta nak buka mikrofon dan tanya juga dibenarkanlah. Ya Puan Fadilah. Puan Fadilah pun bersama daripada Department di Perak dan juga daripada BS, Business Survey. Okey. So Alhamdulillah ini adalah edisi yang ketiga, webinar yang dianjurkan oleh Syariah in the Built Environment Research Group. Okay. Dan kerjasama daripada research group ini adalah bersama sekali dengan Southeast Asia Built Environment Research Center di bawah Fakulti Fakulti Seni Bina Perancangan dan Ukur UiTM, bersama dengan Muamalah Islamic Built Environment daripada Akademi Pengajian Islam Contemporary. Dan ini adalah siri yang ketiga. Okey, dua siri yang pertama kita telah banyak topik dan isu yang telah kita kupas berkaitan dengan alam bina, dan berkaitannya dengan syariah sebagai cara hidup dalam kita membangunkan, merancang, membangun dan menguruskan kita punya persekitaran alam bina, bangunan dan segala pembangunan. Okey, so untuk hari ini ada satu lagi siri yang kita akan buka. Kita ada seorang lagi speaker iaitu Dr. Sharina Farihah Hasan. Okey, selamat datang Doktor untuk ke webinar kita pada pagi ini. Alhamdulillah. Okey, sebelum itu saya perkenalkan dulu kita punya speaker iaitu Dr. Sharina Farihah. Beliau merupakan Assistant Professor di Department of Quantity Surveying daripada Kulliyyah of Architecture and Environment Design UIA. So beliau merupakan dari segi pendidikan, beliau merupakan practitioner lah dalam bidang quantity surveying, okay, dan bachelor degree from UTM, okay, Master of Science Engineering, dan PhD dalam Construction Economics. Betul ya, Prof? Dr. Farihah?
I'm not a practitioner. I don't do the practitioner work for QS, but I am full-time teaching at IUM.
Alhamdulillah. Ya, dan expert dalam bidang quantity surveying dan apply ke dalam syariah dan environment ya. Okey, so untuk pagi ini beliau akan berkongsi dengan kita dalam satu topik iaitu framework for the provision of Haddul Kifayah for shelter. Betul Doktor?
Betul.
Okey, so kita ada lebih kurang untuk 1 jam perkongsian sebelum kita buka kepada satu sesi soal jawab lah selepas itu. So dengan segala hormatnya lah dipersilakan doktor untuk memulakan perkongsian. Terima kasih. Silakan doktor.
Okay, Assalamualaikum and a very good morning. Thank you, Madam Moderator, Surveyor Huraiza. So I'll start with the slide share terus lah ya.
Dipersilakan doktor.
Okay, so the topic, as what the moderator mentioned earlier, is framework for provision of Haddul Kifayah for shelter, or in Arabic, it is Haddul Kifayah lil Ma'wa. Lil Ma'wa means shelter lah. Yeah? So I hope you don't mind. I will be speaking in English.
Boleh doktor. Tak apa.
And thank you for the committee, especially Prof. Khairuddin for inviting me. It's, actually yang ni bayar hutang dah lama dah janji dengan Prof sebenarnya dah daripada tahun lepas lagi, tapi tak apa sihat. So alhamdulillah today is available lah. Okay, so I will be talking about zakat first. Of course, I believe that everybody here are already familiar, but just to provide a brief overview. So zakat in term of the meaning is a form of a contribution or alms or tithe if we compare with Christianity. And it is an obligation on all Muslims. So it is wajib for those who meet the requirements to pay and those who that are poor to be assisted. So this is based on Surah Al-Hajj verses 78. And the objective of zakat, macam mana nak? Okay. The objective of zakat, which is socio-economic and welfare system within the Muslim community. So in terms of socio-economic, it helps Muslims to help each other, and it contributes to the welfare systems. And of course, it also contributes to the development of foundation for the Ummah society, whereby all Muslims should feel responsible to contribute towards the community and help each other, those who are wealthier, to assist those who are unfortunate in the society. So sharing in terms of wealth and also help the socio-economic and welfare in the Muslim community. So that is the main objective of zakat. And in zakat, there are two main players who are the zakat payer and also the recipient. So recipient in Arabic, it is called as known as asnaf. So there are actually 8 categories of asnaf based on the relevant verses in the Quran. So the first one is fakir or hardcore poor, and the second is miskin, poor, and the third is amil. This is the collector of zakat. And amil normally being appointed by the Majlis Agama Islam Negeri to collect zakat money. And mu'alaf is the Muslim convert. So those who are convert into Muslim, the new convert lah so we call as mu'alaf. And riqab, slave. So actually riqab a slave, this category are non-existent already in the community these days, but the contribution of zakat money for this category is now being distributed to other asnaf. And garimin is the debtors, so people who are having problem to pay their debt. And fi sabilillah, those who are striving in the appreciation of Islam. So this fi sabilillah, normally people such as students, people who are working towards knowledge, distribution of knowledge of Islam. And the last one is Ibn Sabil, who are the wayfarer. Wayfarer ni example-nya those who are musafir and suddenly perhaps they are being robbed ke, so they have problem in term of financial during their journey itu, so they can be helped and they are categorized under Ibn Sabil. And the other parties for zakat is zakat payer. So for those who pay zakat, there are two categories of zakat that needs to be paid. First is fit or self, and the second one is produce or earnings. So the rate for self or zakat fitr normally we pay during Ramadan before raya puasa tu kan. So it is normally been determined by the ruler based on economic situation. So the rate for 2022 last Ramadan for Selangor is RM7, RM14 and RM21. So this rate normally based on the rice type of rice consumption by the household. So this zakat is not being it is not like we pay tax. If we do not pay, then we will be chased by the lembaga hasil kan. But zakat, it is more of self awareness, self responsibility. So we have to decide which type of rice that we consume every day within our household. So based on that, then we can decide which category that we need to pay for zakat fitr. Either RM7, RM14 or RM21. And the second is produce or earnings. It is at 2.5% of annual income. And the administration of zakat in Malaysia, zakat is administered by the state or State Islamic Religious Council or Majlis Agama Islam Negeri. And jurisdiction of state collection of zakat under the state lah. And zakat collection are performed by Amil and deposited in the state Baitul Mal for the benefit of asnaf only. So for the benefit of 8 categories of asnaf. But now there is already a contemporary zakat distribution whereby people who the Ma'in believe that they are interested to convert into Islam. So for to create interest for them to convert into Islam, so they can also be helped and categorized under asnaf, perhaps fi sabilillah or under other categories. So this study focus on the asnaf fakir and asnaf miskin. Although there are 8 categories of asnaf, but what I want to talk today is on the Haddul Kifayah, which is to know the category for asnaf fakir and asnaf miskin. Okay, the distribution of zakat fund to asnaf fakir and miskin is based on Haddul Kifayah. So, what is Haddul Kifayah? According to Lembaga Zakat Selangor, they define Haddul Kifayah as minimum sufficiency line for basic needs of an individual and his dependents based on the current cost of living. So they look from the context of current cost of living and what are the basic needs of that household. So what does it mean by basic needs? It is the item and services one requires to facilitate one's life and without which will cause him difficulties to carry on. So it is daruriyah lah. So kalau makasih syariah tu daruriyah. So items and services that one household require in order to facilitate their life. So the amount, however, the amount required to cover the basic needs, so this differs from one individual or household to another. So one household, perhaps their Haddul Kifayah is different as compared to the other, and that there is no specific amount for every asnaf fakir or miskin. So there is no specific like a cap at certain amount. So that is not how Haddul Kifayah works as compared to PLI or poverty line income by the government. So now poverty line income is set at 2,200 something, I think, for Malaysia. But for Haddul Kifayah, it depends on the basic needs of the individual or the household. So there is no cap. And Haddul Kifayah also the income of individual or household used by zakat authorities in determining whether individual or household is eligible to be categorized under asnaf fakir or asnaf miskin. So if they fit into any one of the said asnaf, either they are asnaf fakir or asnaf miskin, so they would be eligible to be given financial assistance via the zakat fund. So at the amount that they receive, that is another issue. So that is not being covered under my study. This study only look at whether they can be categorized under asnaf fakir or asnaf miskin. So the amount required to cover basic need differs from an individual or household to another, like I mentioned earlier. And in addition, the calculation for Haddul Kifayah is based on a few variables, such as the number of members in the household. So how many people in the household, how many children, for example, a family has. And also the age group of the members. So what are the age group of the children in the family, and etc. So this one I will discuss in detail. And in terms of fakir and miskin, so the definition for fakir, those who own or do not own any asset of sufficient income to cover his or her daily needs, the daily needs such as meal, clothing, accommodation, and etc. Accommodation also known as shelter. But they are able to fulfill less than 50% of his and his dependents' actual daily needs or the amount of Haddul Kifayah. So if they are below 50% of Haddul Kifayah, so they are considered as fakir. But for miskin, person who has asset or income to support himself and his dependents, and they are able to fulfill more than 50%. So if 50% and above, they are considered under the category of miskin. 50% of daily needs, but less than the amount of Haddul Kifayah. So to put it into perspective, fakir are those at less than 50% level. So those who are below 50% of Haddul Kifayah, those are fakir. And miskin at more than 50%, 50% and above, but less than 100%. But at 100% is the Haddul Kifayah. So I'll show an example of the calculation in order to decide. But Majlis Agama Islam Negeri, most of them have their own calculator. So if you look at, say for example, Lembaga Zakat Selangor, they have their own calculator. So someone just need to key in the information about their income and their dependent, information about their dependent, and they will be calculated automatically using that calculator. So one will know whether they are categorized under the level of fakir, miskin, or they actually supposed to be the zakat payer. And in terms of Sharia legitimacy, there is no specific verses in Quran mention Haddul Kifayah. The word Haddul Kifayah in Quran, there is no specific mention. But when we talk about Sharia legitimacy or the dalil or nas on Haddul Kifayah, normally this hadith is being referred. There are another hadith, but this is the main one lah. So I just highlight here. So when what is being inferred for Haddul Kifayah is where in this hadith when it mentioned for him begging is permissible till he gets what will support life, which means that basic needs or will provide him reasonable subsistence. So again, the genuineness of which is confirmed by 3 intelligent members of these people. So again, it says for him begging is permissible till he gets what will support him or will provide him subsistence. So these sentences are what is being inferred for Haddul Kifayah. So this is Sahih Muslim. The main hadith that when we talk about Haddul Kifayah, normally this hadith is being referred lah. Now, the components and criteria for the calculation of Haddul Kifayah. So there are basically 6 components. The first one, which is shelter or accommodation, which is the focus of the study. And this is from the source from buku panduan proses permohonan skim-skim bantuan zakat Baitul Mal by Mawib. So on their definition of shelter or accommodation refers to covering the cost of providing the accommodation for the household, including house rent, utility bills, and other basic requirements for a living. So this is a brief description on the category of shelter or accommodation. And food, any food or drink consumed by the household. The third one, which is clothing, any types of clothing worn by households, such as daily clothing, school uniform, work attire, and etc. And medical, all form of medical equipment taken by the household. Their treatment pills or medication procured from the pharmacies and etc. And in terms of education, basic need for education or relevant expenditure for education, for example, school, college, university fees, books, and other relevant expenses related to education. And the last one, which is transportation, it refers to the expenditures on transportation, including fuel, monthly installment of the vehicle, bus and or taxi fare, and etc. So these are the established or information available uh, on the description or explanation about each of the components in the Haddul Kifayah. So household category. So in the calculation of Haddul Kifayah, they divide into the different family members. The cost being divided into the different family members. So this is what I gather from the Lembaga Zakat Selangor website. So an example of what has been practiced in 2022 for Lembaga Zakat Selangor or by the Lembaga Zakat Selangor for head family. This R is for rental house and F is for free housing. So free housing normally for those house that they are no longer paying any loan. So if they are still paying any loan, they are supposed to fall under rental lah, ya. So owner occupier also ada free housing. And the cost for housing is only being put for the under the responsibility of the head of the family, the breadwinner of the family. Yeah? And the second household category is working adult for those 18 years and above. Spouse fall under the category of adult, either 2 or 3 if uh, she is working, then under this category lah, working adult at 404 ringgit. And adult, this is for housewife. Kalau housewife, so for under this category lah. Adult unemployed, so 18 years and above. And if they have children 18 years and above, also fall under this category, category number 3. And for children still studying at IPT, and the fifth is studying at school, either apa ni, primary school or secondary school. And then the last category are those infant or children 6 years and below. So these are the distribution of amount for calculation of Haddul Kifayah that has been set by Lembaga Zakat Selangor. An example here, I want to show an example for the calculation. Boleh nampak tak example ni?
Doktor kongsikan dia punya website ke doktor?
Aha,
Ada.
ada. Okay, so this is from the Lembaga Zakat Selangor website. So kadar pengiraan Haddul Kifayah ni. So this is what I insert the information in the slide tadi tu. And for rental house or those who are still servicing a housing loan, uh, the Haddul Kifayah is at 2,784 ringgit, but for free house or owner occupier, so this is at 2,351. So the difference here is on the head of family lah, ya, head of the household, and there is another additional cost they allocate for uh, those who have children disabled or with those children with critical illness. So they allocate certain amount, and the last one is childcare. So how they calculate or categorize whether the asnaf falls under category of fakir or miskin. So an example here, Mr. Ali and his wife live at a rented house in Ampang and work as security guard with the monthly income of 1,200 ringgit a month. So other than his wife, he also has 5 children. So 2 of them still studying at ni, secondary school, and 2 of them are still yet at school age, and another daughter is waiting for SPM result. So how the Haddul Kifayah is being calculated for this dummy case, eh? So the head household, one head household, so at 1078, and then the spouse, unemployed or not working adult, so 181. So here
Doktor,
181. Yes.
doktor ada slide tak moving ke? Sebab dia masih lagi dekat yang website tadi tu. Zakat Selangor.
Still dekat zakat Selangor.
Okey. Sebab saya ingatkan ada calculation dia. Okey, tak apa. Maaf.
Di calculation kat bawah ni.
Dekat slide saya dia tak nampak calculation. Dia cuma nampak website yang Zakat Selangor saja.
Website tak nampak. Sekejap. Nampak yang head household kategori semua ni nampak?
Oh tak. Masa
Tak.
doktor share satu website je. Kami cuma nampak di
Ya.
saya view saya ni cuma link kepada that website sahaja. Tapi that website tak open. Mungkin
Sekejap
doktor
ya.
perlu unshare dulu yang
Mungkin
Sekejap
doktor
saya
boleh
stop
stop
sharing
dulu.
ya ni.
stop sharing dulu baru yang baru.
Okay. Okay. Let me share this one. Okay.
Okey, baik.
Okay, sorry.
Betul.
So
Saya
here,
bersilap faham, minta maaf. Okey,
I
tak
repeat again ya. Tak apa. Okay, I thought it's automatically shown the website lah sebab I click tadi. Okay, never mind. So again here, this is what I exit in the slide tadi. So the head household, adult, working adult, not unemployed adult, and those who are still studying at IPT, those who are still at school age, and those below 6 years and below. So these are the amount that has been set by the Lembaga Zakat Selangor. Okay, for the current amount lah. But the first category here for kadar rumah berbayar ni, so for rented house or those who are still serving what do you call the housing loan. And kadar rumah percuma, this is for free housing. Sometimes people already they inherit rumah ke, so people that do not have to pay rental or servicing housing loan. So therefore under this category kadar rumah percuma. So the amount allocated here, if you can see, the difference is for the head household, because under 1078 ni already calculated for housing, medical semua tu under the head household. But for dependents, they do not consider the cost of housing. So the responsibility for the cost of housing already allocated under the head household. So here for family for rented house, the Haddul Kifayah is 2,734, but for free house 2,351. They also have additional cost. So this one is for children OKU, so disabled. So they allocate 224. This is additional from this amount. And if they have family members with suffering chronic illness, So another additional cost allocated 222, and the cost of childcare at 290. So how they consider the whether the asnaf fall under the category of fakir or miskin? The one I mentioned 50% and below, 50% and above tadi. So the dummy example here is Mr. Ali and his wife living at a rented house in Ampang and work as a security guard with the monthly income of 1,200 ringgit. So other than his wife, he has another has 5 children. So 2 still at high school or high school, and then 2 yet at school age, and another one waiting for SPM result. So based on the dummy case here, so this is the calculation of Haddul Kifayah. The spouse, because the spouse is suri rumah, unemployed, so we take 181. So the adult non-working adults, this is for the daughter tadi, and they have 2 children at school and another 2 6 years and below. And for this case, there is no children with disability, and there is no need for the cost for childcare, and there is no member for that is suffering from chronic illness. And from the calculation there, they use the calculator, and the amount for Haddul Kifayah for the family is 2,398, whereas the pendapatan keluarga or the monthly income is only 1,200. So if 50% of the Haddul Kifayah for the family is 2,000 from the 2,398 is 1199. So 1199 is the 50%. So 1,200 is more than 50% of the Haddul Kifayah. So in that case, they fall under the category of miskin. Say for example, if their monthly income is 1,000 ringgit, so that is less than 50% of Haddul Kifayah. So 50% is 1199. So 1,000 ringgit is less than that 50% too. So that family will fall under the category of fakir. So that is how Majlis Agama Islam Negeri or State Islamic Religious Council decide whether the asnaf fall under the category of fakir or miskin. So say for example, if the monthly income of the family or the household is at 3,000 ringgit. So in that case, they are not falling under either category, but instead they are categorized under the zakat payer. So instead of receiving the zakat money, they have to pay. So that's how the calculation of Haddul Kifayah for the case ni lah. So I stop sharing dulu. Let me share the slide again. Okay, so allocation for head household tadi tu, but I unfortunately the one that I shared earlier is for value in 2022, but the detailed segregation for allocation under the head household for 2022, I do not have the information, but instead this one I use data from 2019. For 2019, allocation for the head household is 940. So it appears now that 2020 they already increase the value for head household. So looking at the detailed allocation for the head household, so basic needs for that 940 ringgit or 610 depend on the type of housing, either rental or free house. So for the allocation of shelter here, for rental housing is at 529 and free house at 199. And for the food, 138, clothing 38, ibadah, this is special category for Lembaga Zakat Selangor. So 53 ringgit, and medical 25 ringgit, transportation 157 ringgit. So the total here, if rental at 940 for free is 610. So what we want to focus in the study is that the allocation of shelter here. So from the context and problem of the study, zakat authorities use Haddul Kifayah as a tool to assess the eligibility of asnaf fakir and asnaf miskin to receive zakat assistance. So several components make up the Haddul Kifayah, and one of them is the provision of shelter, or ma'wa in Arabic. However, there is no clear definition of the type of shelter. So if we refer to the definition by Jauhar or Majlis Agama Islam Wilayah Persekutuan Lembaga Zakat Selangor. So most of the definition is very brief. So they do not categorize the type of shelter, whether it is landed or high rise. So there is no detailed category. And its adequacy and other requisite, the currency of the provision allowed there is. So there is no clear information about that. That is why we use the idea to conduct the study. So other issues related to Haddul Kifayah, if we refer to other literatures, there are studies on the gender of the head household, because the head household we consider as male lah. But what happened if female head household? So there is no segregation there in the calculation of Haddul Kifayah, because female head household normally we consider they have to take care of children. So single mother, they have to take care of the children as well, and having to go out to do work. So those information should be taken into consideration. But under the current Haddul Kifayah set by Majlis Agama Islam Negeri or State Islamic Religious Council, there is no detailed segregation on that. And in terms of locality, so whether family living in urban, suburban or rural areas, because if urban, higher cost of living. But lembaga Majlis Agama Islam Wilayah Persekutuan already do the segregation between urban and rural, and other Majlis Agama Islam Negeri from other state lah. And also, if we look at the calculation for Haddul Kifayah, there is no, the calculation or the calculator is actually static. So they, from what I interview people from the Lembaga Zakat Selangor way back a few years ago. So they mentioned that they do survey on current cost of living every intervals of every 5 years. So now it appears to be 3 years lah. So that 3 years tu, that year tu, say for example, if they do the survey in 2019, so they use the cost for 2019 to calculate for year 2020-21. So the amount that is being established is static. So there is no consideration for inflation, so year on year growth. So it is not relative. So that also what we took into consideration in this study. And there are lots of mention about adequacy, sufficiency, and currency in our study. So here we define currency adequacy as the item listing of the components and criteria for the provision of shelter or ma'wa in a Haddul Kifayah. So again, if we refer to the definition by Jauhar or Mawib or Lembaga Zakat Selangor, in fact, the description too very brief. So what are the detailed basic components and their criteria that contributes toward the cost of shelter? So that's what we want to look into. And in terms of sufficiency, the amount, whether it is sufficient or not to accommodate the need of the asnaf for the shelter in Haddul Kifayah. So we want to know whether the amount that is being allocated, is it sufficient relevant to the current cost of living when we talk about the cost of housing. And currency, this is what the inflation rate, we use the inflation rate tadi. So whether the allocated amount is current or otherwise. So the objective of the study or research that we have done is to ascertain, number one is to ascertain the presence of the components of shelter under the Haddul Kifayah. So we want to know what are the components and their criteria. And number two is to determine the type of shelter and related expenses for satisfactory upkeeping of the premises. So how much does it cost for each and every component? And of course, we try to construct an appropriate index to address issues on the currency and the locality of the provision, and to develop, test, and validate the framework for Haddul Kifayah lil Ma'wa or Haddul Kifayah for the component of shelter. And the methodology for the study, we apply the technique of combining desk research, literature review. We conduct questionnaire survey and also interview. And we also conducted focus group discussion during the study. So the output of the research is in the form of a framework for Haddul Kifayah for shelter or Haddul Kifayah lil Ma'wa. And the framework is developed with the aim to ensure that the calculation for the provision of shelter or ma'wa under Haddul Kifayah by zakat authorities is in line with the current cost of living, and particularly for the context of adequacy, sufficiency, and currency of the data used. Briefly on the framework, it consists of 5 main components under the types of provision of shelter or ma'wa. And the components are complemented with detailed formula for its calculation. So each component we also prepare or establish a formula to do the calculation. And publish indices such as consumer price index CPI and also residential price index. We use that and utilize it to enable an inflation proof and also geographically sensitive index in the calculation. So briefly, this is the framework. So here, type of and provision of shelter. Here we take into consideration the different type of housing. Either rented, stay free, or purchased via installment. This is including owner occupier, and either the house is landed or multi-story. So under this element, we under this component we identified 14 elements to calculate the cost of housing. And component number 2 is the size of household. So the size of household would determine the appropriate type of houses or the size of house to be occupied by the household or by the family. So we identified 4 elements under the size of household, and we also include for the requirement for person of special needs. So if there are any family members that require special needs, or whether they are disabled or also suffering from critical illness. So those are the 2 elements under this category. So if there is no members that apa ni under the category of special that require special needs, so this can be deleted lah in the calculation. And inflation, this is to ensure again the currency of the data used. And location, so whether it is urban or rural, so we use the residential price index in order to ensure that the cost to reflect the location of the household. And this is what do you call, a simple formula that we come out with for overall. But for each of the category here, it has its own formula. I will show briefly nanti sekejap lagi. So the overall formula for this Haddul Kifayah lil Ma'wa is this lah, summation of the alpha. Alpha 1 is A, alpha 2 is B, alpha 3 is C, and alpha 4 is D, and alpha 5 is E. So F is the Haddul Kifayah lil Ma'wa. So this is the simple formula that we came out with for overall concept of the overall framework of the index linked Haddul Kifayah lil Ma'wa. So this will contribute towards Haddul Kifayah for the components of shelter. So other categories, we do not touch other categories lah. So we focus on the requirements for shelter. So this is the step by step. Macam mana I tak boleh analyze. Step by step. Let me share. Let me share the Macam mana I nak share? Macam mana ya I nak share file lain? Sekejap. Okay. Okay. So ini ability dash. So this is the overall framework to show. Sekejap, eh. Okay, so this is the main framework to show the step-by-step calculation. So first, or A tadi, we identify the components. So here, we categorize the type of housing, either landed property of high rise. And the 14 components that I mentioned earlier, here 15 if there are other components lah, we allocate additional. But the main here is 14 components that we identify. So this formula has been, for this category, a formula has been established in order to calculate the amount or the value of the total component. And the second step is determine the household size. So we need to identify the head, spouse, and children. So how many children they have. And also we put under this category which is not being included in the current calculator for Majlis Agama Islam Negeri. What happen if the head household also the caretaker of close relative or parents or aging parents? So that should be also be included under the household size. And weightage here we categorize for rental house and also free house. So based on the statistics by the Department of Statistics, so they consider average household size is at 4.1%. So kalau 4.1% for in Selangor for low cost housing, rented cost is about RM134. And free housing, they also we consider the type of housing at 700 square feet with 3 bedroom. And the third step is additional if there is any members that require special needs. So people with critical illness or with disability lah. So we add the special needs, the calculation here for this weightage we calculate at RM112. And in order to ensure currency, so the information or the calculation here total up and we calculate the inflation rate. So in order for calculation for inflation rate, we use consumer price index. So for this study, because we did it in starting from 2018, the data we use in 2018, so base year for the framework is 2018, but that can be changed based on the current year lah. And the year of the survey on cost of living conducted by Mawib was in 2018. So that's why for the framework, we use base year 2018. So for the movement of inflation though, we use consumer price index in order to ensure that not only the because we do the survey data on 2018. So kalau nak calculate, if we want to calculate the cost for 2022, we can use the consumer price index in order to ensure the currency. So, and then after that, we establish location index. So, again, because of the survey for the framework for the study itu, we did in 2018 at Kuala Lumpur. So, wilayah persekutuan Kuala Lumpur. So, the base location Kuala Lumpur at 100 lah, index 100. So, if say, for example, we want to use the framework but to calculate the cost of Haddul Kifayah for Selangor. So, we can use the information base year 100 for wilayah persekutuan Kuala Lumpur. So we can use the residential price to calculate the cost in order to come up with the location index for Selangor. And total of all this A, B, C, D, E, then it will become the allocation for shelter, Haddul Kifayah for the allocation of shelter under the Haddul Kifayah lah. So go back to the tadi tu lah, the what they call the framework tadi tu So I go back to the slide. So the components, the 14 components tu, which is rental for those who are renting, and loan installment for those who are paying loan installment. And this cost for those who are not paying rent or loan installment for free housing, there is no cost for them on number 1 here. And the cost of electricity. So in our study, we come up with a detailed criteria. What does it mean by average consumption of electricity? And water supply, telephone, sewerage bill, quick rent, or for landed property, they have to pay quick rent, and for multi-story, perhaps they have to pay joint management committee fee. And assessment tax, cukai tanah, and internet, this is already basic needs now. And cable channel, based on the survey, they consider cable channel as basic needs, but this is of course argumentative lah. And maintenance, the maintenance of the housing itself, cost of repair and any required maintenance. Insurance, this is for the insurance for the house itself. Apa ni, secure in term of protection, in term of theft, fire, so this kind of thing. And also insurance for householders. This is insurance for the furnitures or equipments in the house. And furnishing is the basic furniture such as bed, and also wardrobe. So those basic furnishing, or basic furnitures. SST, so for components that are yet to include SST in the calculation. So that's why we include SST as one of the components in the main component for housing. So others, if there are any to be added, depend on the situation. And the novel or originality of the framework, this framework is to ensure is established or is prepared to ensure that the calculation for the provision of shelter under Haddul Kifayah by zakat authorities, which is supposed to be in line with the current cost of living, and particularly for the context of adequacy, sufficiency, and currency of the provisions allowed therein. And as for the conclusion, the research and its finding are innovative and significant in terms of first, we consider that its approach in ensuring the calculation of the Kifayah for shelter, we consider it as appropriate and adequate. And also the quantum data, the amount allocated being index linked, ensures that the calculation has taken into consideration the price fluctuation in the local and national economies. So these are the publication that the article that we published. And you can see here, Professor Khairuddin is one of the prominent co-authors. I like to thank Prof. Khairuddin because I managed to do the work and finish the research through his guidance and also support lah throughout the research. And we managed to get actually 4 copyright. Another one certificate is on the way. We are yet to get it from my IPO. So these 3 or 4 copyright are for the framework. Actually, from the study, we come up with a set of 4 framework. So first is the main framework, and the second one is detailed explanation of the framework, and the third is the calculation or detailed formula for rented house, and the fourth is detailed formula for people staying at free housing. And this is award we submit, Prof. Khairuddin lah, submit for ISCI ID last year. So we received silver award. So I would like to acknowledge TRGS, by the Ministry of Higher Education Malaysia that support or funded the project. Thank you. But before that, allow me to share briefly the framework lah. Boleh ya, Prof? Kena tanya Prof juga, Prof. One of the copyright owner. Boleh ya, Prof?
Boleh.
Boleh ya.
Go ahead.
So this is the main framework, the first one. The main framework. So this is how we do the calculation to show the how we do the calculation. So the different type of housing. So here A is identify the components, so type of housing, the component itself, and B is determine the household size. So the second stage, category of household, and also we create the weightage based on either rented or free house. And see here additional if we require special needs, the condition is already being allocated here. So weightage based on the different type of special needs. So, and then we calculate the inflation rate using consumer price index base year 2018. And after that, we establish the location index using Wilayah Persekutuan Kuala Lumpur as the base location. And we use data from NAPIC report, the residential price for low cost housing. And then the total there, then we come up with the allocation for shelter under Haddul Kifayah. So every calculation, the formula here, for every component, we establish their own formulas. And then this is what I shared just now. And the second, so here the second framework. This is the detailed explanation. So under rental, we come up with the criteria for rental, and also we categorize under the level of maqasid. Maqasid syariah, either daruriyah, apa dua lagi tu? The level of maqasid ada kat dalam ni. Tak apa, I share later. So the amount is based on either survey or the amount based on published data. So this value is base year 2018 because the survey we did in 2018. So here I want to share the detailed criteria that we established for each of the subcomponents. So electricity, water supply, and all the subcomponents. So we categorize under two categories: landed property or high rise. So this is the detailed explanation for the framework. And here for the calculation for determining household size. So these are the explanation for special need, what is critical illness, what is disabled. And then calculation for inflation rate, again, base year 2018. So this is an example for 2019. And then we establish the location index, base location wilayah. This is an example if we use Selangor. And here total will be the allocation for shelter. So these are appendix for explanation, detailed explanations. Tadi I mentioned about maqasid, so daruriyah, hajiat, and also tahsiniyat. So the subcomponent we also categorize under the different level of maqasid. This is rental or sewerage charge domestic. So detail of the calculation or criteria tu ada pula dia punya appendix explanation here. So this is framework 2. And then framework 3, here, this is what I mentioned about the establishment of each formula for each component, each subcomponent. We identify the components, so we establish the formula here. And we also show dummy example of the calculation on how to use the formula. And we also establish what are the variables required in order to be used to use the formula. So this amount here is sample for base year 2018 survey. And this is the calculation of weightage for household size. So this is the formula. And this is for free Sekejap Formula for stay for free home, owner occupier, rumah yang tak payah bayar dah. So this is the formula for weightage household because we need to know the appropriate size of house to accommodate the members of the family. So this is dummy calculation and this is the variables required or data required and how to calculate the special need, how to calculate the inflation rate to make sure that it reflects the current cost of living. If it is now 2022, then we use the inflation or consumer price index year the latest lah. Then location index, since we use data for wilayah Sultan Kuala Lumpur, so the dummy calculation here, if the case of Selangor for assessment year of 2019. So this is the calculation. And total, a summation of A, B, C, D, and E. So this is the total. So for the dummy case here, for free housing, the Haddul Kifayah for housing is 417. So that's why we need to match this figure with the current data published by Majlis Agama Islam Negeri in order to know whether their published rate is actually a reflection of the current cost of living or not. So the fourth framework is again the formula, but this is to cater for rental housing, for rented house. So this is the formula. So the difference is actually here lah, in terms of the different type of housing. The calculation for special need, inflation rate, and also location index are similar. So also we come up with a dummy case and the calculation. So if it is rented house, the cost in 2000 for Selangor assessment with assessment year 2019, the cost is at 492.76 ringgit. So that should contribute toward the calculation of Haddul Kifayah for the head of household. So I think that's all for the sharing the information for today. I open for discussion or if there is any question.
Alhamdulillah, terima kasih Dr. Sharina. Okay, dibuka sesi di hujung ni sesi untuk soal jawab. Jika ada soalan boleh tuliskan di chat box ataupun nak buka mikrofon dan tanya secara direct kepada Dr. Sharina pun dibolehkanlah. Siapa yang ingin bertanya soalan? Doktor, cuma saya nak bertanya tentang pendapatan garis kemiskinan ni. Adakah ada tak
Okay,
salah di
PGK.
negara? Yang kita dah ada tu kan?
PGK is static. Dia macam every family dia tak, it doesn't consider the number of family members, the location. So it is static. Let me share. Oh tak ada. So kalau sekarang ni untuk Malaysia is at 2208. That is for PGK or poverty line index or poverty line income PLI for Malaysia. So this is based on the survey done in 2019. But the minister at the Prime Minister Department, Datuk Sri Mustafa Muhammad already mentioned they will publish new PGK in 2023, next year. So now they are using PGK based on the calculation in 2019, which is at 2,208 ringgit. But that is static, so it doesn't matter lah how many numbers of the household family members. But when it comes to Haddul Kifayah, they consider all those categories of age of the children. So the actual cost of living is being reflected under Haddul Kifayah.
Termasuk dalam
It's just
elemen
that
komponen.
dalam komponen tu.
Hmm.
But shelter is only one of the main components. So because I'm from the construction background, so I focus on shelter lah.
Hmm. So tidak termasuk yang komponen yang lain tadi tu lah yang untuk dikaji seterusnya lah.
Yeah. So cumanya when we look at the impetus of the study, when we look at the cost of allocated for components of shelter tu, kalau you tengok tadi, like I share again So here head household yang take into consideration the cost of housing. So here shelter. Kalau 2019 it's only at 529. But is it actually a reflection of the current cost of living or not? So there is a question there. And under shelter ni, what are the components that is not being published in detail by the Majlis Agama Islam Negeri lah when they establish the Haddul Kifayah tu. In fact, kalau if we look at the current website 2022, the calculation of Haddul Kifayah, they only give this. They only publish this. So we don't know the 1078 ni because 1078 actually a reflection of this six basic needs. So how much is for shelter? But in 2019 dia ada bagi detail ni, cuma for 2022 tak ada detail. Although the total Haddul Kifayah tu dah increase instead of 940 in 2019.
Assalamualaikum, Doctor.
Waalaikumsalam.
Okay, I'm Nadia from UiTM Perak.
Yes.
Okay, Doctor, I just want to ask you, did you share these findings with all the Majlis Agama Islam? And then what your recommendation during this, when you propose all these items, what they're saying about this? Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. Siapa tadi? I don't get your name.
Siti Nadia.
Siti Nadia. Okay. Actually, during the study, when we did the focus group discussion, we also invite people from Zakat Selangor, and they are very interested. But when we come up with the framework, we are yet to share with the Majlis Agama Islam Negeri lah, because there are still areas that I believe I need to improve. So once that has been done, lagipun sebelum ni we are yet to get the copyright punya certificate tu. I only received the copyright certificate tu last month in August. So that's why we are quite reluctant to share yet lah. So after this, we will continue.
My opinion that if you can share with them all this finding, they will be happy because they need more data, more participation from public to help them to get real data. So I hope that you can share as well as you can, because it's a very, very important for B48 Asnaf to get all the benefits. Good job, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, terima kasih. Ada soalan lain ke? Daripada partisipan yang lain jika ingin bertanya soalan.
So Prof Khairuddin is one of the main member in the study. So in case Prof nak add anything. Prof? Tak ada.
Mungkin Prof terkeluar ke? Oh ada, Prof ada.
Ada.
Prof ada. Ada kita kepada semua partisipan di ruangan chat box tu ada dikongsikan link untuk kehadiran. Mungkin boleh diisikan lah.
I kena isi juga ke? I kena isi juga.
Untuk kehadiran. Ada soalan lagi ke? Bagaimana? Tebal 12 suku ni mungkin ada masa lagi yang kita boleh share. Cuma yang saya dapat simpulkan Doktor, Dr. Sharina,
Hmm.
kajian ni lebih nampak lebih kita tengok aplikasi dia kepada apa alam bina pembangunan pembangunan untuk asnaf especially kan. So kita dapat tengok dari segi socio-economicsnya. So kajian tu lebih detail lah ya, dapat tengok dia punya apa perbezaan tadi dengan pendapatan garis kemiskinan tadi yang lebih statik. So nampak dia lebih fleksibel lah di mana semua komponen itu diperincikan dalam setiap apa A, B, C dan D dan E tu kan tadi dalam formula tadi tu. So, kita dapat tengok sebenarnya apa yang represent kepada had kifayah untuk zakat especially untuk fakir dan miskin kan. Jika begitulah so saya nak juga
That is the formula is an idea, but if we scrutinize the detail of the formula too, of course there are lots of improvement that can be done before we can do a prototype for the calculator lah.
So ini penemuan yang awal sebelum kita boleh, maknanya boleh dibuat lagi lah diperincikan di masa depan ni. Okay, so nak mempromosikan juga tentang Sibe ni, pada semua peserta juga, jika terlepas mungkin sesi untuk yang kali ini boleh ditonton sesi-sesi yang lepas, perkongsian sesi yang lepas dalam YouTube Sibe, boleh search dalam YouTube SIBE Syariah in Built Environment dalam YouTube tu ada. So dekat dalam tu ada semua video-video yang lepas lah. So kalau nak buat rujukan di situ ada semua sekali yang telah dikongsikan untuk siri-siri yang lepas juga. Boleh subscribe dan boleh like lah mana-mana video yang bersesuaian. Okay. So
Ni kata the mic faulty.
mikrofonnya problem. Tadi mikrofon dah okey dah. Dia punya kamera kan, kamera tadi tak okey, sekarang dah okey. Sekarang mic. Mic
Mic
okey.
pula.
Okey.
Tak dengar, Prof. You mute ke, Prof? Tak dengar. Tak dengar. Okay, I hope that what I share here is beneficial to all the participants lah. If you are interested to join study with me on this area, I have a lots of other ideas that I'm working on at the moment to extend the research. So you are welcome to contact me lah. Again, thank you Prof lah. Prof lah yang banyak tolong buat research ni. Idea, the main idea, the impetus of the idea tu from Prof Khairuddin. Number, you want my contact number? I can be contacted through email tadi, but this is my mobile. Tak dengar, Prof. Tadi okey je, Prof.
Prof dah tak boleh.
Tak ada, tak ada kot.
Tak ada. Okey. So bagi pihak Sibe Committee, saya mengucapkan terima kasih kepada Dr. Sharina atas perkongsian yang sangat menarik, topik yang masih boleh diperhalusi dan akan lebih menarik lah. Sekarang ni pun dah menarik. So, terima kasih atas perkongsian, atas ilmu yang diberikan. Mungkin di masa depan akan ada lagi talk lah daripada Dr. Sharina, insyaAllah mungkin. Sebab siri
InsyaAllah.
daripada Sibe ni dia ada, ni baru masuk siri ketiga lah. Okay? Dan lepas tu akan ada beberapa lagi siri. So, terima kasih juga kepada semua partisipan, peserta pada pagi ini yang sudi meluangkan masa. Di kebanyakan universiti kita masih cuti semester. Okay. So mengambil peluang yang ada masa ni kan untuk kita berkongsi ilmu. Terima kasih kepada semua. Okay, jangan lupa juga untuk menulis, mengisi borang kehadiran. Kalau boleh kita rekodkan kehadiran. Okay, kalau yang terlepas sesi sebelum ni mungkin boleh dirujuk kepada YouTube, Syariah in Built Environment. Ada satu platform yang kita dah kongsikan semua video-video yang lepas yang kita telah buat untuk 2 siri yang sebelum ini, dan coming siri-siri yang ketiga lah. Okay, so mungkin kita boleh buka kamera untuk kita bergambar. Cik Wan, kita akan snap ke?
Okay, sekejap Sekejap gambar.
Okay, boleh.
Okay, gambar Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, lagi sekali. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you.
Okay, terima kasih Dr. Sharina, terima kasih Prof. K. Terima kasih semua.
Thank you
Assalamualaikum.
for inviting me.
Ya, sama-sama Dr.
Assalamualaikum. So, I kena isi ke ada attendance tu? Tak payahlah ya.